my friends, yes, welcome to another episode of Nintendo Nightcap, bringing you, as always, all the latest Nintendo Switch 2 news. And today we got loads of stories. We got an update on F-Zero, an update on Hogwarts Legacy, and also NightDive Studios talks about implementing mouse controls in all of its games. Plus, what do Digital Foundry think about the chances of GTA6 landing on the Switch 2? We're going to get into all those stories. Before we do, though, if you want to win yourself a Switch 2, because we are giving away one on this channel on launch day, when we will be doing a 24-hour stream and giving away, as I said, a Switch 2. Well, all you got to do is hit that like and subscribe and make sure you follow us on the day for your chance to win a Switch 2. Right, with all of that said, let's get into today's first story, which has to be this awesome little update on F-Zero, because yes, Nintendo has dropped another 1 minute or so trailer showing more of the tracks, the gameplay, and it has aged extremely well. Let's take a look at it here. Yes, indeed, my friends, we can see from this latest trailer dropped by Nintendo that F-Zero GX is looking super crisp as always, blistering quick, and of course the game developed back in 2002 by Sega did have a reputation for not only being super blistering quick, but a super hard game to master as well. We can see some of the tracks here, including Aeropolis and Firefield. Looks amazing. We can see the racers corkscrewing and jumping across bridges with a soundtrack that's pumping to boot. It is all going to be looking super dandy on day one. It's going to be available on the GameCube NSO app with Wind Waker and a bunch of other games. But fear not, if you are not a subscriber of the NSO app, this is not the only futuristic racer you can get your hands on day one. No, because the guys at Shinen, the guys behind Fast RMX, are releasing Fast Fusion. Yes, the spiritual successor to Fast RMX will be available on day one, and for only $15 to $20. And from the 2.3 seconds of footage we have seen, it is looking amazing. So I will be getting that on day one and comparing both of them maybe. So we have choices, my friends. This is all looking amazing. Let me know in the comments what you think about F-Zero GX, and will you be picking up Shinen's Fast Fusion as well? Right, next story of the day. NightDive Studios, my friends, yes, the guys that pick up abandoned games and remaster them in the name of preservation, and have done beautiful work on games like Doom, Doom 2, the Quake series, Shadow Man, the Turok series, a bunch of games. They have now been talking to a site about the possibility of adding mouse control to these games, and they are very excited because, as they see it, most of these games had mouse control in mind when they were being developed. So what exactly did they say about mouse control for the Switch 2, and what other games can we expect in the future? Let's take a look. So when talking to RPG Site, they were asked, I've been thinking of how awesome it would be to play NightDive's games on Switch 2 with 120 FPS and even potentially mouse controls. This isn't me asking you to reveal new ports, but just to express interest in how I'd happily pay for upgrades if possible for older NightDive releases on Switch 2. And the founder of NightDive Studios, Stephen Kick, had this to say. Okay, well, you know what? I'll write that down really quick. 1 second. When I saw the mouse support for Switch 2, that was kind of what went through my mind as well. It was like, oh boy, a lot of our games, that's how they were originally intended to be played. So it would be great just to even have that option. So you can see right there, it's looking something extremely likely. It would be awesome to go back and play the Doom games, the Turok games, even Shadow Man with mouse controls indeed. It seems a lot of developers are super excited for the mouse controls. I did not get to try it myself. I know a lot of people went hands-on with Metroid Prime 4 and they came away with glowing words about its implementation and how well it works. And on a side note, NightDive did mention System Shock, and of course we know we're getting System Shock 2 on Switch next month, but they did talk about the possibility of releasing a System Shock 2 remake on the Switch 2 amongst other games in the future. So it's all looking very dandy. Just another developer super excited to be working on the Switch 2. Now, next up for today. So my friends, Hogwarts Legacy was a game that we did see on the original Switch. It was an impossible port, but it did have its massive cutbacks. You know, there was of course the graphical downgrade, there was loads of loading, and the actual, you know, open world was kind of interconnected, but it didn't feel that way because there was massive loading times in between certain parts of the world. Now though, the game is coming out on the Switch 2 on launch, and it is a port of the current gen title. But now Warner Brothers, as well as telling us what the upgrades will be, they've also mentioned and confirmed that if you own the original game, you can now buy an upgrade patch for $10 to bringing your game up to standards of the current gen. As well as that, they also mentioned what improvements you will be able to expect on the Switch 2 version of the game, and this is what they said. They said the game will feature improved lighting and shadow quality, anti-aliasing, and much more significantly upgraded graphics for a deeper immersive experience compared to the original Switch release. Of course, we know Sega has already confirmed that the game will be running at 1440p in dock mode, as well as 1080p resolution in handheld mode, and both modes will support HDR, so that is super awesome to hear. Going further, they had this to say: the performance of the Nintendo Switch 2 has not only improved the frame rate from the Nintendo Switch version, but also reduced the loading times. You can comfortably fly around the Hogwarts grounds and beyond. So all very positive news. I do myself have a copy of the game. It's currently on sale, at least in the UK, for about £18, so that's about $20, $25. So if you're picking it up from scratch, you can get the whole deal for about $35 if it's on sale at the moment. So I did dig into it. I do want to play it again because I didn't finish it, so I'm very excited about this news. So there you go, my friends, another piece of awesome news from Hogwarts Legacy there for the Switch 2. Right, last story of the day. GTA6, my friends. Is it possible on the Switch 2? Some people think yes, some people think no, some people think it's way too ambitious for Nintendo's next portable machine to handle. Some other people point to the fact that it's going to be released on the Xbox Series S, and a lot of people believe anything that can run and play on the Xbox Series S should be able to run on the Switch 2, that being for the fact that it's got a lot more RAM, it uses DLSS. But what do the guys at Digital Foundry think? Let's have a quick look.
Don't think so.
So I think scaling it to Series S and having it look visually convincing is going to be a big challenge. Scaling it to Switch 2, come on, that's a lot. It's a lot to ask for a game with this level of ray trace lighting fidelity to work well on Switch 2. And I'd also worry about the CPU side of things, because I mean, they could probably figure out a way to get the graphics on there running at some kind of playable level, even if they had to cut out a lot. They could probably figure out a way to get that running because graphics aren't inherently quite scalable. But on the CPU side, with a fraction of the performance of the PS5, is that good enough? That's not pretty. It's kind of like, theoretically, maybe, like getting GTA6 to work at 60 FPS in the consoles. That's kind of the margin of performance they need to be operating at for a 30 FPS Switch 2 port. Maybe even more ambitious than that, potentially, in terms of the divergence there. So I think that's probably pretty
just
pretty
some other things that even doubt the GPU scaling. CPU, I think, is... If it really is going to be 30 FPS like I expect it to be, I think that's a non-start in the first place. But just like GPU scaling. So in the trailer, we saw everyone's hair being like this strand hair system.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably expensive to run. It probably has a fixed cost. Oliver talked about it in that video. And then, so what do we do about this GPU system that we've made all this art for every single person in the game based upon it? Do we ship it and just doesn't scale the Switch and it runs at 18 milliseconds each frame or something like that every single time one character's on screen? Do we degrade it to the point where it doesn't look like hair anymore? Do we make entirely different hair assets just for Switch? Two, like, not everything scales as gracefully as we would love always to ultra low power platforms. And there's certain amount of things, like there's no dropping of res that can save that. So I really don't think, I mean, surprise me, cool, that's really cool, but I really don't think this is their target. This is probably not their target at all.
Also, just like a lot of the sims that we see in the game, obviously a lot of the physics, a lot of those, like, you know, the beer bottles with the water sloshing around, you know, the liquid sloshing around, like all that stuff that's just everywhere in the game. That stuff, whether it's running on the CPU or the GPU, it's just not going to scale necessarily to the resolutions either. And yeah, the hair,
just turn it off.
Yeah, I don't know if they would make like a totally different, I mean, maybe they have a hair card system in there for like NPCs, but they'd have to do that they have to do something for the main characters, they'd have to do something crazy there, right? So that seems like it would be an incredible amount of effort that I think, historically speaking, Rockstar has not wanted to do for their ports.
Well, there you go, my friends. According to Digital Foundry, don't put your hopes up. They don't think it's going to happen at all. of course, citing many things that we've worried about when talking about the specs of the Switch 2, you know, i.e. the CPU being extremely weak in comparison to this GPU, you know, in terms of GTA6, the amount of ray tracing that is used, all the details that, you know, in the hair movement, the strand waving, you know, the geometry of the liquid in the bottles. There seems like a lot that not only would they need to downscale, but outright remove if the game was able to be played on a Switch 2. Of course, the big factor for me is the fact that if the game is running at 30 frames on current gen consoles, that does seem very difficult for a developer to be able to make run at the same frame rate on the Switch 2, right? There's no leeway. Had the game been on current gen at 60 frames, right, they could cut that in half, and you can see, you know, a way that maybe they can tinker around, right? They can scale things back down. But as it stands, if the game's going to be running at 30 frames on current gen, I guess, you know, in the end, we're going to have to see how it runs on the Series S and see if we can gauge whether there's enough wriggle room to get it running. But, you know, would Take-Two or Rockstar even want to do that? You know, I'm not so sure. We didn't get GTA 5 on the original Switch. I was convinced we were going to, because of course it ran on the PS3, but we didn't. What was the reason? Were they just not comfortable? Was the CPU again the issue back then? Or, you know, do Take-Two just not trust the Nintendo online infrastructure? We're not really sure. But this is going to be one to watch. I feel like we're going to definitely have to see how the game runs on Xbox Series S before we can make further judgments. But at this point, you know, we're years away from that happening anyways. But let me know what you guys think in the chat. Is it possible? Do you expect it to come to Switch 2? Can the Switch 2 run and play GTA 6 at a playable state? You guys let me know in the chat. You know, don't forget, we are getting GTA 4. We're getting GTA 4, at least it seems like. So we're going to get some kind of GTA on the Switch 2. But will it be GTA 6? Anyway, let me know in the chat underneath, and you know, we'll have to see what you guys think. Well, that is the video for today, my good friends. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be back tomorrow with even more Switch 2 news. Don't forget, we are giving away a Switch 2 at launch in our 24-hour stream. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and I shall see you tomorrow, my friends. So until then, have an awesome day. Take care. Bye.